Yo, this hot, this the spot, there it is, pod.com. We're interviewing the best comedians, so tune in quick and get your ears receiving them. We talking about life and life to stream right to you, from the microphone right to your home, dude. Side note, this might get embarrassing, but no, don't sweat, yo, cause there it is.
Welcome to the There It Is podcast, a comedy podcast to help you find your inspiration. I'm your host, Jason Farr. Let's do this. We have an old friend on the podcast. I met her around, it has to be over 20 years at this point. I don't know, something like that. We went to college together. It's Alrinthea Carter. And like I said, we knew each other in college, and years go by, and she finds her way in Greenville, South Carolina, where we reconvene our friendship at the Alchemy Comedy Theater, and have a great time hanging out together there and learning improv together there. And we have a really fun chat today about her journey in improv. It's been really fascinating. We also talk a little bit about photography. Why don't we just get right to it? Here's my chat with Alrinthea Carter. I kind of feel like this, when it's all over, is going to feel like the blip in the MCU, you know, like people are going to come back and it was like, well, I was doing a bunch of stuff, and other people are going to be like, well, I was dead, you know.
Right.
I was not doing anything. It was basically like I was gone for this whole time, and it felt like 5 years.
And trying to figure out how to physically move around a stage is going to be weird for me.
Yeah. I'm going to get winded real easily because I'm not walking anywhere.
I know. Like I was doing like 3 shows a week, you know, all really physical. And then it was just like, it stopped.
I imagine there are going to be a lot of talking head scenes when it comes back to stage improv. We're there again. There'll be a lot of people just standing there because we've all forgotten how to act with our whole body and not just our face.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I joke, but I think there will be a lot of like people saying, tag out so-and-so. And it's like, oh yeah, I could just do it. I don't have to say it out loud.
I can just walk out.
Right.
I am entering the stage now.
Yeah. I just want listeners to know, if they don't already from the description, you and I go way back. We go back to Winthrop University.
Yeah.
You were very involved at Winthrop, and you have continued that trend all throughout your life, in different capacities and different ways. And it's, I think, one of the things that's inspiring about you that I admire, and I think everyone admires about you. When you were in college, I've never had this chance to ask somebody this on the podcast. When you were in college, I know that you weren't doing improv comedy. I know there wasn't that wasn't going on for you in college. But were you thinking about comedy at all? Were you ever like, I would do that if I could?
Well, not so much me doing it myself. I mean, I was on the programming board, DSU, for basically the whole time.
Right.
I was there, and I worked with comics. You know, we booked them, and I got to know them and learned what writers were, and so I knew comedians and I knew how to work with them, but I never really thought about, me actually doing it myself.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I knew that you were doing a lot of things with the entertainment going on there, but I never knew if you yourself were ever like, gosh, that would be fun. But I mean, how do you even, that's usually the answer is people are like, yeah, I thought when I was in college, it would be fun. But didn't know how to get into it. But we didn't have an improv troupe on campus while we were there. So
yeah, I don't think we did.
Yeah, we Theater 99 came a couple of times and performed while we were there, and or the Have-Nots is what they were going by at the time. And everyone knew about Whose Line Is It Anyway, but that was it. That was the exposure. That was the extent of the exposure to improv comedy when I was, I did have a class at one point, an acting class that was an improv class. But other than that, no real exposure to improv.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the have-nots, and I've told them this in person, that they were my first time seeing improv ever.
Wow.
And it is weird. It's a full circle moment when you get to, when you're not 19 anymore and you get to see, those people again. You're like, when I was 19, I thought that you guys were gods up there, and they still are, but it's like,
yeah.
I'm up there with them,
Right.
So.
Yeah. What does that feel like? I mean, I've experienced it with a couple of people seeing people, them as well. I mean, I had that I didn't actually see them in college. I just knew about them. But I adore them. I think they're all really talented. And then I got to be in scenes with them, and that is surreal. And I've had experiences that with other people as well. What was that like for you to see them like as these gods, untouchable gods, and now you're on stage tagging them out in a scene, literally touching them?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to, when you join your first improv company, I guess. When I first joined Alchemy when I was watching shows, I would see Harrison and Jason and Meg and Shivani and all those people, and it's like, wait, like this, like they're doing the same thing that I'm learning in Improv 101. Like that can't be true. And then, I think it happens. You get to that point where you're on the same stage and you don't even realize that it's happened until it's like you're there and you're playing with them and you're tagging them out, and you're like, the power that has to tag someone out of a scene where before you're like, oh, I would never be able to play.
Oh yeah.
With them. Like, they obviously know what they're doing. They don't need my input in this scene.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the transition, is that when you realize that you have equal kind of real estate on the stage as much as your hero does, I think that makes all the difference.
For sure. And I've definitely heard a lot of people talk about when they were in experiences like that, playing with somebody that they were looking up to, and then they realize, oh, they just want me to be decisive on stage. They're not expecting me to come in here and hit a home run. And so I've got to have the funniest thing right out the gate or out of pocket. That's just not how it works. They just want you to pay attention and make a decision so that it helps the scene move forward.
Yeah, and you could get, I mean, and every now and then you'll get somebody who really wants you to put yourself out there and get what you need out of the scene. I was, the first time I played in LA, which was, weird for me that I'm playing in Los Angeles. I was playing with Jillian Bellinger, and she pushed me out on the stage because I was hesitating, and she was like, get out there. And I needed that, so.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've heard, I'm sure you've seen that documentary, This Is It, the Michael Jackson concert video thing. And Orianthi was talking about, the guitarist was talking about how she was kind of holding back at moments because it's his show. So she wasn't trying to take the stage and really go crazy on the guitar, even though she can. And he was like, no, just do that. That is what you're supposed to do here. Really take it and own this moment.
Hit your highest note. Wow! It's time for you to shine. It's your time to shine. We'll be right there with you.
And she was just struck by that. But honestly, that's the only thing that makes sense. I mean, people who are that good, who rise to that occasion, the cream of the crop, as they say, they aren't trying to do bad work. And so, they don't want to be standing up there watching bad work happening next to them. They want good stuff too. They want to be involved with good work. That's why they are theirs, because they've been involved with good work. So it's not that they are expecting you to nail it and just be amazing, but they are wanting to have fun, and they are, when it's improv, and they want you to go for it, because that's what good work is. It's not so much like how well crafted the line is. It's just how much you're going for it, and making decisions and being bold with your choices.
And they wouldn't have asked you if they didn't think that you were ready for that sort of thing.
Right. No one ever asked you to do something that they don't think you can do.
Right. Yeah. No one has time on an improv stage to help you, figure it out. Like, they know that you've figured it out.
Yeah.
And they want whatever you can bring, whatever you specifically can bring to the stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard guitarists talk about that too. Other musicians talk about, like, this icon asked me to play, and I was like, I don't know if I could do jazz that well. It's like they asked you to play. They want you to do what you do. So just go out there and do what you do. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's cool to see you on this side of it, where now you were that person to somebody who's in 101. Whereas however many years ago when you started doing stuff at Alchemy, you were looking at all these other people. It's like, oh my gosh, they're the one. And of course you'll always look at them that way, because I always look at the people who are like that for me that way. But they had their own people that they were looking up to.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're doing so much. That's why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because you were at Alchemy and still are, and you have been doing a lot of big roles at Alchemy producer roles. What is also, you had a title, or you have a title there. What is it now?
So my official title was, I was the executive producer. And there was like 5, actual jobs contained in that. It all made sense. And I've since retired because I, want to devote more time to learning about script writing. And so now I call myself, executive producer emeritus.
Okay.
Which sounds almost fancier, I feel. But yeah, I get to still, give my thoughts on things that are happening and all that. But, other people have taken what I've done and they're making it their own. And of course, right after I stopped, COVID happened.
Right.
And so a lot of the new people who have replaced me haven't had a chance to really spread their wings yet.
But they'll get that chance soon.
Yeah.
And also, you've been doing a lot of things outside of Alchemy. You've gone to Improv Utopia. Speaking of being bold and putting yourself out there, you've every once in a while we would talk and you would do something that was completely frightening to you. You would message like, I'm going to do this and I'm scared. And I would always be like, but you're going to rock at that. Like, why are you scared? It's always like stuff that you were saying. And I understand your hand waving it a little, but like, because I do the same thing when people compliment me. But in all honesty, there are things that everyone, like Jacina and I were talking about it, and or Meg or whoever, we're always like, oh, she's going to be great at that. That's such an obvious thing for her to do. When you put yourself out there like that and you are feeling like maybe nervous or scared or less confident, what do you do to get over those nerves and to get over that hump?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, this all kind of started as a journey with me wanting to do these like 40 things before I turned 40.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those things where it was or perform improv with people that I don't know, that I've never met. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the things. And I also, I've been kind of guided by Brian O'Connell, who has been kind of like that teacher who was like reaching across and saying, this is what I think you could do. This is where you have the potential to be great. You should try to go to Improv Utopia. And so I kind of combined those two things, and I guess it didn't click for me where I was in that, I guess, process of I guess, that growth process until I got there. And I'm like, I am driving to Yosemite to go to play improv with people. And I only knew like maybe one person, and before I got there. And I was like, this is freaking scary. But then when I got there, I was like, oh, these guys are just as big as dorks as I am. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think all improvisers have like that common base level of we're really just nerdy, silly people.
Wherever you go, you found your
that.
people when you, if you're an improviser and you meet up with other improvisers. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I felt like I wasn't ready. I wasn't on main stage. I've got used to call them main stage teams, but at Alchemy, flagship teams at that point. And I was like, I'm ready for that. But am I? So I'm going to push myself to develop whatever skills I thought I needed to have to be attractive to Haymaker and Local Legends and All Stars. So I was like, I have to like learn new things. And I felt at the time that I had gotten enough tools from Alchemy specifically to be like, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to build on it and go to California and learn how people in California improvise. And that just kind of started like what do you call it? A domino effect of where I was like, well, if I could do Los Angeles, then I could go to Minnesota. That's fine, So yeah, that's basically how it is. I mean, you just kind of jump right in there and it's scary. But I always tell myself like I wouldn't be here if I wasn't supposed to be here.
Right.
And that is like, I say it like a mantra. Even in the green room, I'm like, you are meant to be here. You have the skills to do this. Stop screwing around. Just get out there and play.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of the things you mentioned, Brian O'Connell, who's been on the podcast a couple of times. And when I've taken a class of his or a workshop of his, he had this beautiful thing he would say if anyone ever started being hard on themselves if they were struggling with getting something. And he would say, no, do not use this beautiful art form to criticize yourself or to beat yourself up. And I loved that he would say that because it is this great, wonderful thing that we can do. And we can either engage it the way I feel like society has really taught us to engage it, which is from the perspective of perfection, which is you're going to be chasing your tail there, or you can look at it as this freeing thing that gives you power and control. And I guess a lot of people don't necessarily talk about improv from a power and control point of view, but I just mean it is that, though. You're not supposed to be controlling other people,
right?
But you do have more than you realize that you can take control of.
Yeah, and you have, I don't know, I guess when I first met him and I took a workshop with him, I was like, this guy is insane. But I like it. Like, I've never met anybody who put that much emotion into loving improv. Not even just emotions in their scene. Like, he loves it and is, like, joyful about it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I think I kind of compare it to people who do yoga, right? Like, there are people who do yoga. There's, like, the perfect yoga person. They don't sweat. Their yoga mat is, like, $200 and they just do it. And it's more about doing the yoga than actually feeling it. Whereas you go to like, a homegrown yoga studio where the power may not always be working and you don't know if it's going to be hot or not. And people are wearing like t-shirts and sweating like pigs, but you feel it, right? And so that's how I think that is the Brian O'Connell, I guess, model of improv that I've bought into. And it's like, don't worry about being perfect or technical. Just get out there and enjoy it.
Right. I mean, and I can't wait until live improv comes back, because like on stage, because live theater is such an exciting thing. This comes to mind because when I've seen Brian do a one-person show, there was something so incredibly alive about it. And that is what I think theater is at its best.
Yeah.
It's like it's defying physics or something like that. Like, I don't know what it is.
It's like this Nirvana feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel like, I mean, there's that feeling that you get right after you step off stage.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling is, I don't know what that is, but you feel like you can like lift a car at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's enlightenment or not, but it feels like that could be
utopia, maybe.
Yeah, there it is.
No, but that is a moment. I can't have a conversation, especially right after stand up. Like when I was really in a groove doing stand up in Greenville, as soon as you step off stage, for one, especially at Alchemy, if you're walking down the middle of the room, so in that space, if you're doing stand up or improv at Coffee Underground, when you leave, you walk down the middle of the room, so there are people applauding around you, and there's also that experience that you're having when you're just stepping off stage after doing the thing. That is opening up and being vulnerable and just performing on top of that. And there's it's a weird feeling that I can't put into words. People just have to go do an open mic and get there.
Yeah, be comfortable with the bombing part, or that you're not the funniest, or I think the hardest part really is getting up there and doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then that moment afterwards, it is like a euphoria. It is like a, I mean, of course, some people can let it go to their ego, but it can also be really nurturing in a way. It can also like really recharge your batteries. That feeling of stepping off your stage. It's like, oh, I did it. I did a thing. I really did this. And you're having that experience all over the place. Where are all the different places you've gone to perform comedy?
Okay, so California, and then before COVID hit, I was actually supposed to go up to Minnesota, to Minneapolis, to perform in the Black and Funny Improv Festival.
Yeah.
And then that shut down, and so that was my first time. That was going to be my first time playing with them, and then just virtually, I've gotten to play like with all over the world, basically, which is wild to me.
Yeah.
Because another one of my goals was, and there's this player, he's a veteran player, Jonathan Pitts. Mm-hmm. He created the Chicago Improv Festival and all those great things. He was doing a global improv walkabout where he was just traveling around the world, like staying in a country for like a couple of weeks and teaching classes and performing. And I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be on that path. And I didn't realize this until recently that I've been doing that the whole time. So virtually I've been playing with people in God, what is the state? Arizona and California and Texas and Maryland and and it's like, wow, like this is wild. This is insane to me.
I keep up with festivals for the podcast, and there are just so many all over the world, like way more than I realized, that have, I mean, I knew there were a lot of comedy ones, but I didn't know there were so many with improv involved. And it's a fun time, a festival. I know it can get pricey, but it's such a good time. And would be great to go overseas somewhere to an international festival. Yeah, but you meet a lot of people. You're seeing all these new ways that people perform. It's great.
It's great. And I mean, until this year or last year, I guess, I didn't know any other Black improvisers other than you. I don't think. And now I have like this whole group of people
Yeah.
that I've been playing with regularly. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I don't know how many there were in South Carolina. And then when I moved up here, I saw a bunch. Then when I was looking at all these festivals, you find out about a lot of stuff going on in different areas. When there are a lot of Black comedy festivals, and improv, and it's like, oh, well, okay, I would love to go to those one day. Some of them I found out right before COVID, so it was, but I knew about Black and Funny a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
So I hope they come back soon.
Me too. Much love to them. I mean, it's that's one of the sad things about festivals right now is that it could be easy to say like, oh, they're coming back, but they don't know if the space they were in is going to be something they can do. Like
right.
And the Pit just closed their main stage here in New York, and they had a few festivals out of that space. So like, who knows what's going to happen? But fingers crossed that people can find spaces and restart these fests.
Yeah, and find people to play in them, and people be comfortable to travel again, and
right.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure. You also have a lot of experience with photography. You've been doing that for a super long time. Were you doing that back in college, or was that something that you started later?
I started that in college. I, decided to take a photography class because I loved taking pictures anyway. So it's like, I'll learn how to do in a dark room. So I took it, and the professor that I had said, "You're good at this." And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just keep doing it then. And I was taking pictures of people for like Mother's Day and Father's Day for gas money, basically. And that's when I first started selling like photographs, because it's just fancier. I mean, in 2002, it was fancier to have a photograph that someone developed in a black room, in a dark room.
So what professor did you have?
I had his name was Mark. I don't remember his last name.
I had Mark too.
You had Mark too? Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. He was very encouraging. I think a lot of guys who took photography took it because they thought it would be an easy A and they'd be around a lot of girls.
Yeah.
But I love photography, so I was taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And I think that impressed him there. And then he was like, Jason has this camera that's, I think, older than him.
I had to borrow my camera. I had to borrow like my Canon AE1, and then I bought one on eBay for like $90, which to me at the time was like, this is the most expensive thing that I own. I can't break it,
Do you still develop?
Not anymore. It's been about 10 years since I've last been in a dark room. And I was, I started kind of extending roles away. Like I was sitting to like Walmart because that was the most affordable option. And then they stopped developing roles in the store. And that's when I switched to digital.
Yeah. I mean, I am just a nerd. So I would be that. This is the most hipstery thing about me. I would want to develop, if I got into photography, which I would do, I would want to develop it because I enjoyed that process.
Yeah.
But, it's at this point, it's sort of like, I don't know, how are you going to find the space to have it? You have to have a lot of chemicals and
just stuff.
Yeah.
And you have the time to do it.
The time, gosh. When it got to be more of, when you got away a little bit more from doing people's photos, anniversary photos, and started doing art pieces, when was that for you? Because I went to a few displays that you did in Greenville that were great. When did it become a form of art that you wanted to present yourself in?
I think it really started with just exploring. Like I was just like the years after I graduated from college were just really hard for me emotionally, and I couldn't find a job, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I would just go on these drives, and if you're in South Carolina, you can always find some sort of backcountry road to go down. And I was like finding these houses, and I was like, that's really interesting. And I would start taking pictures of them, and just for myself. And then people would see them, and they're like, oh, that's really cool. Do you have any barns? Or they would ask, like, do you have any broken windows? And I'm like, no, but I'll see if I can find one. And that is when things started growing. And my first show was in Clemson. It was in a hair salon. And it was just like a small affair. My friends donated bottles of wine, and it was like the greatest thing. And then when I moved to Greenville, it took a couple of years for me to, I guess, get into the scene to be able to have a show up there. And so that was a big deal for me as well. But yeah, I mean, taking pictures of old houses and creepy things, I think it started as an emotional thing, more as like a focus, and then it just became a focus.
Yeah. We've got a piece of yours here. So,
Nice.
you're up in New York.
Yay!
Have you noticed any sort of correlation to your photography and improv? I mean, I would imagine there's not too much overlap, but maybe there's something that you have learned. I mean, sometimes when you're trying to take a photo of a house and some old house, abandoned house, and you're like, oh, can't go through here, I'll improvise. Maybe there's that sort of spirit of or just pulling over on the side of a road randomly. Maybe maybe there's overlap there. But what have you noticed?
Well, you've got to be, spontaneous. That's the biggest thing. But I think that when I discover like a factory or a mill, something huge, it takes time to go through that and find what's beautiful in there, which often there isn't anything beautiful, but you have to kind of make it your own. And I kind of equate that to being on stage with a team, and you are taking whatever that suggestion is, and you are working through that suggestion together. If your team is in sync, you can feel like their brains moving as well as yours, dissecting whatever that suggestion is, and how we're going to spread that suggestion over 20-25 minutes and create something together. And I think that's the same as like going into a house that's very scary on the outside, and then finding like a beautiful mural or something inside, and but you have to take the time to do that.
Wow.
And that's what I would say would be the crossover, the Venn diagram, I guess.
Nice. And what sort of philosophy have you developed from all of your experiences, not just traveling for improv, but even photography? Do you have a improv philosophy that you are developing or that you have already developed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, no one ever died from, forgetting what beat that they're on. You know what I mean? The fun is in figuring out what you're doing, and it's not going to kill you. It's scary, but it's not going to kill you. Now, taking pictures of scary buildings, that could kill you.
That could kill you.
But you have to know what you're doing, and you have to know where to go. You kind of build that instinct, and you build that instinct with improv. It's like, kind of what you can do and where to go. And, there's sometimes I'm like, what beat are we doing? Is this a group game? I still, I'm not a technical player, I don't think. But you go by feel, and you just we work it out.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, that's a really great point that I haven't thought about before, but that is something really common in improv when people feel like, oh, I'm going to mess up.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what beat this is, or I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to mess up. And you feel that in their performance, and you feel that in their presence on stage when no one's going to die.
No.
If they start the quote unquote wrong scene now. I mean, there are actually forms that work that way, the way that
I
they
love those.
Mistakenly did it. Yeah, and those are fun forms. So just do the thing.
Yeah, and I guess take care of yourself, but when you let fear kind of take over and you have that fear that you're going to mess up when you're on stage, that's you trying to take control of the scene. And that's not how improv works. And that's what I had to learn is I love having control. I'm a Capricorn. I'm an Enneagram
Same.
3. I'm an eldest kid. And so I like knowing where things are going to go. And in order to really figure out improv for myself, I had to like let that go and not try to control the scene and not get mad when I give out an idea and someone's like, no, I'm going to change it to this. And like, oh, wait, I set that up. You're supposed to set it up how I wanted you to set it up. And that's not how it works. And so, and you once you let that go, it's open field running at that point.
That's absolutely true. And I am a Capricorn as well. And I like things in order. I like order because it's easier.
Yeah.
When I know where the spoons are in the drawer, then it's easier. And it doesn't clutter my brain. But improv doesn't work that way. And that's kind of one of the things that's great about it. It's not, I'm not wrong, you're not wrong, improv isn't wrong. It's just, this is how we're all mashing up together, and that's the good thing. That's the fun thing, It's having a moment of saying like, okay, I guess we're just gonna do that scene now. Like you can't change it. Once it's starting, you can't be like, no, we're supposed to do the scene with the nurse at the chocolate factory. We're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Like you just
the whiteboard in my brain. Yeah.
If there's a way to do improv wrong, it's that.
Yeah.
It's to say in the middle of someone else's scene, no, we're not supposed to be doing this right now.
Right. And who wants to play with that person? Like that
who
person
would? Yeah, that would be no fun at all. I mean, I think it's the spontaneity is the thing that I think all improvisers know and love about improv. Stand-ups like structure maybe because they come up with the jokes and this is how the jokes go and here's the set list and this is the order I'm doing it in, and so it's easy to follow. But there are a lot of great comics who don't do that.
Yeah. And I think like with stand-up is, now that I've done stand-up a few times, I do it very rarely. And usually when people like force me to do it. But I think that you go in with like the structure, you have your jokes, you have everything. And it's just kind of like going on stage and doing a Herald. You have the structure in your head, but you don't know how it's going to go. And you don't know what audiences or how they're going to react to your jokes, or if that's going to keep you if that's going to take you from one bit to something you didn't even think about. I mean, I think about like Jerry Seinfeld,
right?
Who is so conversational and so observational. It's like he can say a bit and be like, "Oh, they like that." But wait, there's another thing I've been thinking about. Let's talk about that as well. And I'm sure it's like more mathematical. It's not.
He's I mean, he's one of the ones who is like, he's almost like Sorkin. The way Aaron Sorkin writes, where it's like, this is the way it goes.
In comedy, what you do is you think of something that you think is funny, and then you go from there. I like the first line to be funny right away. When I was a kid and they invented the Pop-Tart, the back of my head blew right off. And that got the whole thing started. A specific part of my head blew off, not just my head, but just the back. The Pop-Tart suddenly appeared in the supermarket, and we just stared at it like an alien spacecraft, and we were like chimps in the dirt playing with sticks. You got chimps, dirt, playing, and sticks. In 7 words, 4 of them are funny. If it's just a split second too long, you will shave letters off of words. You count syllables, to get it it's more like songwriting.
Right.
Someone was talking to him about his stand-up, and they were like, "Oh, do you have fun when you're up there?" And he's like, "I'm working up there." Like, it is exhausting what he's doing because he is being like very technical about how he's approaching it and how he's executing it. And, that sort of vibe, that can work in a well-oiled machine of an improv team where they're so comfortable with each other and so used to each other that they can rattle off the form very specifically, but they're still finding the moments of freedom and spontaneity And that's
Yeah.
that's the point of it all, right? I mean, that's the beauty of improv, is like finding the spontaneity and running with that.
Right.
That's the most fun show you'll see.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And do your own thing. Like you could be a storytelling comic, or you could be someone who's like, I don't know, Don Rickles is going to do like one-liners, you know?
Right.
That's what it's about, New York. Italians, Jews, Irish, whatever the hell you are. You're people. That's what I love about this city. I swear to God. Are you an Irishman? You an Irish kid? What are you, a bird? Where you from, young fella?
Chicago.
Trouble. You're not Italian?
No, sir.
Jewish?
No, sir.
French?
No, sir.
What are you?
Swedish.
Swedish. Damn it, I don't have a joke for that.
Right.
Like like Don Rickles and I don't know, I'm like I guess Don Rickles and Jerry Seinfeld are two very different comics.
Yeah.
But they're both equally, loved for what they do, you know? So
Yeah. And you have been taking classes at Second City, and you just were already in the conservatory. Now you're in something else, or did you just get in the conservatory?
So I was taking TV writing classes at the Second City, and that's when I started, on that new kind of journey. But I always had the goal since I started in the improv game, I guess, is I saw someone and I heard that they joined the Second City Conservatory, and I'm like, what is that? That sounds like the fanciest improv you could possibly do. Yeah. And I've kept that in the back of my brain until now, and because of everything's virtual, I wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise. You usually have to move to Chicago or move to LA for a year to do that, and so now was the time to do it. And the funny thing is, once you get into the conservatory, you're improvising, but you're improvising in a totally different way because you are improvising with the goal of writing sketches. And so it builds another muscle in your brain where you are going through that improv scene, but on the other side, you're cataloging things to write sketches later. And it's very interesting to be someone who, I guess I've been doing improvising for like 8 years now, but it's a totally different game because you have to you're writing with your right and left hand, the Second City style. So.
Can you break down what that is for people who are listening and maybe they've never taken an improv class or a sketch class? How do you improv with the explicit purpose of writing a sketch?
Yeah, so with Second City, Second City is like, I guess people know Second City from people that go on SNL or people who end up like Steve Carell and all that, all these funny guys. And the way they do it is, you get a suggestion, you're doing an improv scene just like any time else. But say your suggestion was almond, and you start talking about doing this thing about almond milk, and you remember like the major beats of that scene, where that'll take you to write a sketch about a store that only sells like cow milk, and that becomes the most famous thing, or that becomes the new thing, is like everyone's on oat, almond, and whatever milk, but cow milk is revolutionary. I just made that up, but it's kind of like that. So you're just taking those seeds that are built from there. So kind of like doing bits. You consider that doing the improv is you're riffing and you're doing the bits, and you're taking those bits and writing them down later on and being like, okay, random milk store. There's got to be something with that, and you come back to that and you write a sketch.
Sometimes I think a lot of people have mentioned what Matt Besser of UCB said about a really good improv scene could be written down as a sketch. And I think sometimes, and maybe some places do it this way, people think writing a sketch through doing improv is doing just a normal improv scene and then just trying to write that scene with the structure of a sketch or something like that. But it's not necessarily that. That's one way to do it, maybe. But what you're describing is maybe something that is tangential from the improv. It's like, oh, I'm going to take this little tidbit here.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're doing A to C. It's just that your improv scene is the A, and your sketch is whatever ends up with C, and that's how you go there. And I think that's why people from Second City do so well, obviously on Saturday Night Live, because they've been trained to be able to create sketches really quickly based
Right.
on just ideas.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's one of the things people don't know so much about with what it takes to get on TV. They'll think
yeah,
like, why isn't so and so on the cast? They're funny. And it's like because they couldn't do the work. I mean, like
yeah,
it is TV writing is intense, especially the stuff that's like SNL where they are going to start pitching ideas on Monday, and then by Saturday they have to do a live show.
yeah,
Come hell or high water, it's going on.
yeah.
So you have to you got to come with the idea, flesh it out, and then write it.
Write it and then act it out and then
Get
get
the
the
part,
costuming and
costuming and the set design for it all ready by Saturday. And then also, if you're writing for a late night show, monologue jokes, you got to have be able to write a bunch a day. You don't write
yeah.
10. You write 50 to 100 to 200 in some cases. You have to be able to rattle them out. And there are people who do comedy who want to have those jobs, but they don't realize that is the workload.
Yeah, it's not even necessarily even your jokes, your actual joke as you write it may not end up on, with Conan saying it, but it starts getting filtered and filtered and filtered until it comes the best joke it can be, and that's
Right.
that's what he says. But it also helps you to really observe the world around you because if you're writing a late night packet, like I used the Jon Stewart packet that kind of blew up this year.
Yeah.
They gave you one day.
Yeah.
February 15th. We want to know what you can do with the
And that
news
day,
cycle.
absolutely.
And that day, yeah, everyone
Yeah.
was writing, and it took me like, now that I've done this, like my third time doing this, it's a lot quicker. But before, it took me like an hour to come up with like one joke.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that blew people's minds of like, what? It was almost like a how dare he sort of response. And I think people who work in the field were just like, yeah, okay, you're not getting hired. I'm not.
Yeah.
They didn't say that online, but I think their attitude was like, okay, if that's how you feel, we're not going to be seeing you.
Yeah, you have to be ready to jump right into the trenches.
Yeah,
and get it done.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. So what's next for you? What do you have any ideas of what you want to try to conquer now? And obviously there are going to be some unknowns, but what do you know?
Well, being a Capricorn, I always have to have a plan anyway. So, it started with me just being curious about writing for late night, and that grew into like, oh, I love writing jokes. I love writing funny sketches for that. But I also really love, the art that goes on behind the camera for shows, and listening to podcasts about shows like The Office or, what have you, and getting into like, what is the writer's room like is so fascinating to me because you're not creating a scene out of scratch. You're creating a whole show and a whole storyline, from scratch that week and then moving to another storyline the next week. And it's kind of like this puzzle that I'm like, I love that. This is how my brain works. I want to be able to view the world and be inspired by what I know and create that. So, it started with the late night writing, but it turned into pilot writing, and then it turned into, sitcom spec writing. And now I'm 2 years later and I'm fully invested in learning, screenwriting and writing scripts and getting those scripts read and being seen. And my goal is to be in a writer's room, and it could be a late night writer's room. It could be a sitcom writer's room, but I want to be at the table, creating that thing. So, yeah.
Well, that's amazing, and it's inspiring hearing you say that. And it's another one of those one of those things that anyone who knows you who's hearing this is saying like, oh yeah, obviously she would be great at that. And of course she is going to be doing that, right? Why wouldn't the universe give her that? She's good at it. You're so great. It was so great catching up with you. It's now time to create something together.
Okay.
Here. And it's been a while since I've done an improv scene. Maybe we could do an improv scene and then like throw out ideas for a sketch that come from the improv scene.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Let's see. Let's get a suggestion. I'll just pull something up and get a random word and department.
Department. Okay. So you're in the wrong place. You can't really bring, animals here.
I'm in
this is Sears.
Well, my dog and I, and also my cat, and also my llama, we want matching leather jackets. And you buy those at Sears, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've got leather jackets, we've got washing machines, we've got car engines. But, we don't really like to have live animals in the store. It scares the children.
Whoa. What children are coming to Sears and they're scared of animals?
It could be a random little kid who's like, I want to go to Sears today. Because that just happens. They're walking around the mall, and the kid's like, I want to see what a washing machine looks like.
That's what kids are saying today?
Yeah. Kids love machinery.
And they don't like animals?
They don't, like especially llamas.
Oh, all right. Look.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, if what you're saying is true, you've got some shitty kids who come to Sears, okay?
Well, I mean, to be honest, most of you shitty people come to Sears anyway, so that is fine. Like, we are used to that. But we want to be welcoming to those people, and we don't want to scare their kids with llamas.
I'm here, and you're not being welcoming to me.
I mean, you can stay. You can stay as long as you want. But the llama and the dog and the cat, they have to go. So, and who puts a jacket on a cat? There's nothing scarier than a cat wearing clothes, in my opinion.
It's a badass cat.
Ugh. I don't see where that cat right there that's sleeping in that sunbeam, that cat is badass. Oh my God. It's terrifying to me. Look how comfortable he looks.
Yeah. Comfortable, badass.
Ugh.
It's a very alpha move, that cat.
Yes. Well, it's alpha moves like that scares little kids. And, frankly, scaring me. Like, I don't like the way that llama is looking at me. What? Like, it loves me. I don't like it.
What's wrong with that?
I mean, look at his eyes. You cannot trust something with kind eyes like that. Ridiculous.
You're a robot. That's why you like appliances. Like all the shitty kids that come here, you're a robot.
Yeah, we're robots, and we don't welcome kind-eyed llamas in Sears.
This is bullcrap. We gonna go to JCPenney's.
Ugh, they'll take you.
Let's go.
Anything can go there.
Let's go.
Anything goes in JCPenney's.
All right, scene. There are a few scenes there. There's a few sketches that can happen off of that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like what I'm thinking is, you're pitting Sears against JCPenney.
Okay,
There's something there.
There's something
Turf
there.
Wars.
An alpha cat.
Yeah.
Animals in leather jackets makes me think of like they're on a gang together. There's an animal gang.
Yeah, you're taking Animal Farm and you're taking them off the farm, and they've become like gangs with leather jackets and like the collars, like
blades and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shitty kids. There's got to be something there when you say like, oh, the kids that come to your store are shitty.
Yeah.
There's got to be
those kids.
something there. I don't know what.
Like Sears kids, and then they, I guess I have turf war on the brain, but you have the Sears kids, and you have like the children's place.
Oh,
kids.
okay, yeah. And there's something else you were mentioning. Oh, the kids like seeing. So that was one thing that first struck me as funny, and I would say if this were a Herald, we'd have to see a second beat of it, or some sort of improv show. We'd have to see later in the show the scene where kids don't want to go to a petting zoo. They want to go see a washing machine.
Yeah.
Like that's maybe the like clearest sketch in my head that I could think of where I could see more of the beats of that.
Yeah. Or an adverse of that could be, a parent who wants to entertain his kids and can't afford a ticket to like the aquarium, and they take them to the mall, and it's like, the world is open to you. Explore the mall,
Let's go to the mall.
There it is.
There it is.
Oh God!
You said You said it. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, Al.
Of course, this was so much fun.
So much fun. Really enjoyed having her on, and we will put a pic of her photography that I mentioned that we have up here in Brooklyn in the bio, but you can also go to her website, southernfilter.com. That's filter with a PH. Pretty hot and iltering, I guess, is what it stands for. You can also check out her blog, alrintheacarter.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at Alrinthea. Links in bio. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at There It Is Pod. And you can follow me on Twitter at JasonFarJokes and on Instagram at JasonFarPics. We have Kyle Gordon on next week. Until next time, be good to each other.
The music for the theme song was created by Neil Brooks. The rap was written and performed by Nick Acevedo. The logo for There It Is was created by Jeff Prater. The There It Is podcast is produced by Jason Farr.